All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and yep, we're still coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, worldwide, toll-free, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger and all the other social media sites, including Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, and L. X Zone Radio TV and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is our good friend, the one and only Dr. Joe Marra. He's a doctor of nursing practice and has held an established practice in Altoona, Pennsylvania called the Urgent Care Center until June of 2011 when he decided that he was going to go down south to keep warm in New Mexico. And Dr. Joe was telling me before we went to air that this morning it was 1 degree, and if he thought he was going to get sympathy out of this boy, sorry, Dr. Joe, we had one hell of a snowstorm here, so if you'd like, I can send you down some snow to make it feel like home.
Oh, I'll tell you, we had just a dusting of snow, but that cold, frigid weather that everybody else is getting, we were getting it too for the past several days. And like I said, it's supposed to be, I think it's supposed to get up to 48, which is going to feel like a total heat wave here after several days of being like 1 degree.
Yeah, cold and frigid reminds me of my first girlfriend in high school. Anyway, well, Dr. Joe, I'm sorry?
At least you were smart enough to move forward with that.
Yeah. I went to the bar one day, asked the bartender for something tall, cold, and full of gin, and he passed me his wife for the rest of the night. And that's the last time I did that one. Dr. Joe, always great talking to you. We've talked about so many things on the show over the past couple of years that you've been able to be with us. But something that a lot of people may not realize is that you were actually on one of the episodes of Paranormal State.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yep.
So what was it like working with Ryan and the rest of the cast and crew of Paranormal State?
You know, it was really cool. Here I am. I have 3 urgent care centers going at one time, and I was working at a drug and alcohol rehabilitation place on the side, kind of moonlighting, and so I was pretty busy, and I get this phone call that they needed a past. How did they? It was a past life regressionist they were looking for, and so they looked on the internet and they found me, and so I traveled to this location, which was near Phillipsburg, not Phillipsburg. It was in between. No, it was in between Indiana and Punxsutawney. And so I travel out there, and here, after I spoke with the woman at this particular house, I found out that it wasn't actually a past life issue. It was more of she was a psychic, a medium, and she was just coming into this new awareness and these new abilities, but didn't know it. And so, of course, Ryan consulted me and his crew and things, and I took her through some hypnotherapy, which brought all of this out. And what's really interesting on these shows is you only have like 30 minutes to put a show together, and they piece all this together after time. And I mean, there's lots of time that's spent there, and they can't possibly show all of the things that really happened, and because there's commercial breaks and all that. Yeah. And man, what I witnessed there and what was on the TV, they showed you some things, but it wasn't everything. And man, I'm telling you, if people saw the whole show, like the whole thing I saw, it would raise some hair on the back of your neck. Put it that way.
Really?
Oh yeah, man. And so I've been exploring this field for so long that I've witnessed so many different things throughout my life, and yeah, that was a thanks for reminding me about that. That was a really great opportunity, and in fact, um, boy, because of HIPAA, I don't know if I can say this on air or not. I have to think about this.
Well, why don't you tell me during this next commercial break that we have coming up in about
Sure.
1 minute from now, and we'll pass it through our resident censor and all-know-it guru by the name of Craig. And I'd like to continue, if you don't mind, talking about your experiences with ghosts and mediums and so on when we come back from this break.
Sure, absolutely.
Exonation, the one and only Dr. Joe Marra is our special guest this hour. Visit his website at www.aguidinglight.com. That's AGUIDINGLITE.com. And the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com. Welcome back to the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. Dr. Joe Marra is our special guest this hour. www.aguidinglight.com, and that's aguidinglite.com. Before the commercial break, Dr. Joe, we were talking to you about your episode on Paranormal State, and you know, I'm 6'5". I come in at 250 pounds. I guess if I was a psychic, I wouldn't be a medium. I'd probably be an extra large. But, you know, what was it like actually being on the set? You know, you told us that, you know, I agree, you've got to throw an entire show 22 minutes. You've got to keep the commercial content because that pays the bills. In your opinion, what you saw on TV, was it the best part of what you actually witnessed? Or no, eh?
Mm-mm.
Why do you think they edited it the way they did?
I have no idea. When I saw it, I was so disappointed. I'm like, if they really want to capture the audience, I can't believe they left out the best parts.
Now, what were the best parts?
Well, let me just give you a backstory. Like my tech guy that I brought with me, my computer guy, he was an ex Marine,
Right.
and he was an IT guy. He was into computers and all that. He had these top clearance. He was cleared to be in top clearance or whatever. What's that called?
Top
I'm
secret.
not sure exactly. Yeah, top secret. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And here's this big. I mean, he was pretty ripped too. He's a pretty big guy, and he's there, and he goes strutting in there with me, and he's sitting there, filming, and because I bring my own things when I'm there, and I brought a digital recorder and a video camcorder, and when we were walking away, he was walking down with me to my truck, and he says, "Buddy," and he puts his arms out, and he was shaking like a leaf, and he's like, "Not many things bother me, but oh my God, that freaked me out." And I just started laughing because I've seen all this stuff so many times.
What did he see that freaked this Marine out?
Okay, so if you watch that episode that I was in, you can see me in front of this woman sitting there hypnotizing her, and as I'm hypnotizing her, all of a sudden she's like, she taps into these psychic abilities that she has, and all of a sudden she sees 2 or 3, and you know what? This is taking me back. This was a few years ago, so there was at least 2 ghosts, I guess you would call them, or spirits that were in there, and one was not real nice. One was malevolent and one wasn't. One was, and so she was sitting there telling us exactly what was going on, like what she was seeing.
Right.
And so here's this guy that had his arms folded that was standing behind her. And Ryan and I are like, okay, so what is he, like, what's he doing? And she's like, he's watching you and Ryan. And we both look at each other like, holy crap, okay. And Ryan's like, well, why is he looking at us? And she's just like, he has this mean grin looking at you guys, waiting to see what you're going to do next. And that's when all of a sudden some of these things start happening, which they actually showed the lamp, and all of a sudden they have the camera on this lamp, and it has this it has some kind of material around it, and you see that it just gets ripped off of it, like there's nobody around it. And they tried to mimic it, and they tried to debunk it, and they couldn't. They're like, how in the heck did that happen? So anyway, all these other things was happening like that we couldn't explain. And she's sitting there giving us a play-by while this is happening. And so it was corroborating what she was saying, because she's like, okay, he's over here, and he is, doing this. And the next thing you know, this book would fall off the shelf or something, So as a witness, we're both looking at each other, and the whole team is sitting there looking at each other like, holy crap. So I'm expecting all these things to be on this show, and it didn't show but only a couple little things. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Well, there you go. How many shows have you done like that in your career?
Well, I've only been on like that Paranormal State that went like international, but I've been interviewed by yourself for several years, and so many radio shows all over the world. Plus, I had my own radio show, Universal Talk and A Guiding Light. I had 2 of them that I interviewed people all over the world to try to put the pieces to the puzzle to what's going on this planet, because there's just so many things that seem to be separate, but as you explore each one of them, they have a common thread, and all of a sudden you have this bigger picture of what's going on. What
do you think is going on, Dr. Joe?
Oh boy, that is a very, very, very big question. And when's our next commercial break?
We've got another 6.5 minutes.
Okay, all right. So what, in my personal opinion, I think that it's all about truth. And each individual person's truth is their own depending on their perspective and where they are on their own spiritual path. And that's why it's so confusing to hear different people's explanations of what's going on the planet, because as the scientists are proving, there's more than just 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
There's several dimensions, and depending which dimension we're talking about has its own universal laws or rules, if you will. And so as you gain more awareness and consciousness, and as you start to believe in some of these things, you open your mind up to the possibilities that, oh, this could actually happen. And for instance, you could have a total skeptic at that same place where we were at, and because they were skeptical, they wouldn't have seen anything because their brain they wouldn't allow their brain to perceive it. Whereas people that are open-minded will see these things, and it'll manifest right before them.
I've talked to neurologists, neuroscientists. I've spoken to quantum physicists. And they believe, now not taking anything away from your experience, Dr. Joe, that people who have a like consciousness or a like ability can actually transmit thoughts to other people like ESP, except what they're doing is they're transmitting their beliefs. And people of the like mind actually pick this up, and they basically, in their mind's eye, see what the person wants them to see. What's your opinion on that hypothesis?
Okay, well, 2 things with that. I believe that, and again, that is a truth. That is a reality for those people that believe that particular. Right. That's their truth. 2, I've been in situations where I'm standing in a group with a group of people, and we're all looking at the sky, and the one person says, "Do you see that?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, I see that blue." And then the next person to the south. I mean, we each and every one of us are in that same. So you could call it telepathy,
right, if
you want, or allowing our beliefs. But some people, they won't even allow themselves to believe in that.
Wow.
So. You know what I'm saying? It's like they won't even allow themselves to believe in telepathy. So their truth is totally different. They'll say, "Oh, that can't be scientifically proven." So do you know what I mean by the truth?
Sure.
Each individual person's truth is their own, simply because of their belief system.
It reminds me of the old expression, "Birds of a feather stick together." Now, I'm not saying that sarcastically, but those people who believe in UFOs see UFOs. People who believe in ghosts see ghosts.
That's true.
And they congregate. They get together, and I think this is one of the most significant events that we've seen over the last 20 some odd years doing this show, is that people are forming groups, alliances, trying to get to the heart of the matter, to the truth. But what I also see is that there's a lot of people who don't want to share the information with other researchers within their own little field of research, because they want to have the smoking gun. And I think this is doing a lot more harm than it is good.
Yeah, and there's another variable to this. There are people out there that are muddying the waters, so nobody wants to be duped.
Yeah.
So when you see a picture and it could be Photoshopped, now because of technology, people are standing back going, "Wow, that's really cool," but what? I'm on the fence about it because I wasn't there, so I don't know. I don't want it to come out next week and them say, I photoshopped it. You guys are all being ridiculous. But what about these cave paintings that were 1,000 years ago? We didn't have technology. What was flying through the air at that time,
Well, you know what? Was there something actually flying through the air, or was this their perception of how they came to be? Because the people way back when certainly didn't have the knowledge of science that we have, astronomy and so on. So I guess to the early hominids, they had questions just like we do. So,
a lot of times they will depict on petroglyph what they're seeing, they're physically experiencing. So here in New Mexico, I've been to these ancient sites, and you'll see these paintings I have one particular. I could send you all kind of pictures, but the one is an elongated skull of what appears to be an ET, typical what you would see on the movies as a gray, but with the elongated head like you see in some of the Egyptian pictures. And next to it is a picture that isn't from the indigenous realm. It looks like a UFO, what people describe as a disc. And so what was that? What were they possibly seeing? And then you also see these paintings and these pictures of them pointing to the sky of these things that look like a UFO. So I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there, so I'm just speculating.
Dr. Joe, stand by, my good friend. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Dr. Joe Marra is our special guest. Always great having Joe with us. His website is www.aguidinglight.com, and light is spelled L-I-T-E. That's aguidinglight.com. And Dr. Joe will be back with us on the other side of this news break as we continue here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Exonation, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next 2 weeks with the Sochi Olympics, because we had Elizabeth Joyce come on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she made specific psychic predictions. If she's wrong, she'll never come on the show again. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Marra, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled Lite.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone Radio Show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
It's a whole new way of life. Well, let's hear it.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and yes, you can listen to the X Zone Radio Show on your landline or your mobile phone 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year by dialing 213-401-0080. And a number of people have said, Rob, why are you doing that as well? Well, it's very simple. Our research showed that 40% of North Americans, you ready for this, do not have smartphones where they can actually go to the internet sites at xzoneradiotv.com and, listen to the show, or to any of the affiliates that we have. So they either have the old mobile phones that are strictly mobile phones or landlines. So we figured, hey, why not allow these people the opportunity of listening to the show as well? It's that simple. So there you go. 213-401. Thank you very much for that, Craig. 0080. Dr. Joe Marra is our special guest. And Joe, you and I were talking about ghosts before. We were talking about paranormal state. And as I was going to the news, I was just reminding the listeners that Elizabeth Joyce was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she made very specific predictions about the Sochi Olympics and what is going to happen. And you and I were discussing briefly during the news about predictions, and tell us about it, Joe, from your viewpoint.
From my perspective, these individuals and everyone on the planet actually can do this, and we have the ability if we focus our attention and our intent towards it. But there are just some people that were born with these gifts, and they've been able to hone them most of their lives. But with predictions, you have to realize that in this moment, like right now, I could predict something, say tomorrow, and I would have a better chance of having that come true or be spot on than, say, I predict something a week or a month or a year down the road, because we live in this dualistic world. We live in a free will zone. So there are too many variables to try to account for, and there's 7 billion people on this planet that we're co-creators of this thing we call life, this reality. So, when you go out on a limb like that and predict, first of all, something in the Olympics, again, we all have free will. We have choice to make decisions of going left or right, or, and the longer it is until you do a prediction, say you do it a month, the less accurate you're going to be.
Dr. Joe, prior to 9/11, now I've been doing this show since 1992. So I've had Kenny Kingston on. I've had, Michelle White-Dove on. You name the psychic, they've been on the show. Not one psychic predicted 9/11. However, within hours of the travesty of September 11, I was getting emails. See, I told you. I predicted it. And I'm saying, where? So we will go through our archives. We go through past shows. And not one of these psychics predicted it to the best of our knowledge.
Yeah.
So why is it, how come there's never been a psychic who has been able to find the next stock that splits, diamond mines, picks the winning 649 numbers, or in the case of Sylvia Brown, even knows when she's going to die?
Yeah. A lot of this has to do with our ego versus our spirit. And anytime there's a battle within yourself or confusion, that's the battle between those two parts of your humanity, and that's spirit and ego. People that make predictions, it's a self-gratifying thing. It's like, oh, I want to be right, so I'm going to predict this. Spirit doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to come out. It doesn't have to seek fame or fortune. It just is. And so that's the difference. And when people go out and they make these predictions, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but I'm just telling you as a rule of thumb, if somebody's making these predictions, one of two things is going on. It's either their ego
big time.
or they're trying to muddy the water, or there's somebody that is paid to do that, to muddy the water and cause more fear or confusion and these types of things.
In the early years of the X Zone, we used to go to psychic fairs. We used to do the show live by remotes from psychic shows. And you'd have these psychics, 20, 30 psychics sitting in the middle or around the room, and you'd watch people go from psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic. And you knew when the person who was going to the psychics heard what they wanted to hear because they wouldn't go to any other psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? My heart used to go out to these people because they're laying down $80, $90, $100 a pop. And then when you'd have the psychic commercials for psychic hotlines, Dionne Warwick, Kenny Kingston, Madame Cleo, on late at night when people who had problems with their job, with their finances, with their love, they couldn't sleep, they turn on the TV, here's a psychic, they're going to give you all the answers to your problems. Finally, the Canadian government and the American government said, hey, this is wrong. So what did they do? They took psychic infomercials off the air between 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. And my hat's off to the FCC and the and to the Canadian government, CRTC. But what does it do to those people who use it, who use their gift, use their ability to help people? And I know there are those out there, and one I can mention two right off the top of my head. Very low-key people that I've had the pleasure of knowing. Number one is Psychic Dorothy in St. Catharines, and the other is Lady Ashley from Niagara-on-the-Lake. These two ladies honestly believed they were doing something right, and their goal was to make a difference, a positive difference in people's lives. Joe, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm waiting. Do you have a question for me for that? Or?
Yeah. The question is, how come you've got those who go out to psychic fairs, and if you've got 20, 30 psychics sitting down, shouldn't they all be on the same frequency? Shouldn't they be telling people the same thing? And Marty McLean, a good buddy of mine, and God bless Marty, he used to come with me to all these different psychic shows and exhibitions that we'd go to. We went to a big one in Toronto at the International Center. We walked in the back room, and there you had the psychic sitting there saying, so, do you think we're going to be busy today? And I said, wait, you guys are psychics. Shouldn't you know this stuff?
Okay, so the way I would look at what you just described to me would be akin to a television set that every time you turn the dial, it's exactly the same channel. Because each individual person carries their own frequency. They come with their own perspective through their life's influences, but they still can tap into these higher consciousnesses. But if they speak a different language, if they're raised differently, they use different vocabulary. So the information comes to you. It may come to you in a clear way, but as it filters through the brain and through the person's awareness, it kind of changes the message with each individual psychic. And so when people go to these places, I would suggest if you are looking for a read, allow yourself to kind of just walk by each one of them, and whatever you feel guided or drawn to, your heart will tell you, like, oh, I need to see this guy. I feel it. He has a message for me, or she has a message for me. And so what I see with these psychics is, yes, you could look at it from the aspect of they could be charlatans and just taking people's money.
Sure.
But thought becomes reality, and there's a placebo effect in medicine that we give a sugar pill and somebody gets better, even though we didn't give them anything but sugar.
Yeah.
So if they go to a psychic, and even if this person isn't psychic, and they start to talk with the person, each individual person's truth is their own, and sometimes they're asking for a permission slip to believe in what they already know. And so as they're discussing back and forth with the individual, now all of a sudden the person is like, oh, thank you for allowing me to see this. I hadn't looked at it that way. And so sometimes they do get a benefit from the experience. And so those people that are truly out there to help humanity, and they are just out there to help.
Yeah.
And I really believe that there are, and I've been a witness to several spot on psychics that were just shocking. Like, what? How would you? In fact, I had patients that were coming into my office that would say, "Oh, I'm having these dreams, and this is going to happen." And next week, sure enough, this one girl, she was 16 years old, come into me in Altoona, I remember, and I can't remember what she predicted, but whatever it was, it happened that next week. And I told my staff, "Oh, well, she says this is going to happen." We all came in and we looked at each other like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
So they don't train you anything about this kind of stuff in mainstream medicine. So what do you do with it when it's right in front of you? And so you have to be open-minded to be able to talk to your patients and not say, "Oh, I better send you to the psychiatrist to put you on psych medicines." You need to be open to the possibility. And so when my patients come to me, I look at it from a holistic approach. I say, okay, mind, body, spirit, emotional, and energetic. Those are all the aspects that I see in the human form. It's not just physicality. There are too many other variables that you need to look at in order to help heal the patient.
By the way, Craig just did some really fast research, and last year the psychic industry made over $2.5 billion in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But what does that tell you about society? Where people...
Well, they're looking outside themselves for the answers when all of us, we all have our own, we always give our power away.
That's right.
I guess I shouldn't say always, but even in medicine, I always tell my patients, like, look, here's what I know, and you can do this, this, or this. And they're always like, or many times they're like, "Well, I don't know. What do you think I should do?" And I always get that's them giving their power to me. And I say, "Look, I'm giving it back to you. You have to decide. This is your body."
We used to have psychics come on every Friday night for 2 hours. And we'd get calls from all over Canada, the U.S., and, back then we were just starting to get into other parts of the world, and we'd get the calls from Europe. And it was always the same questions. Am I going to get that new job I apply? Am I going to get a new job? Am I going to find the love of my life? Am I going to be successful? Am I going to be financially secure? And it came to the point where I decided to stop having psychics on for 2 hours because my audience was becoming dependent on the psychics.
Yeah. And you know what else is funny about that? As they're on there and they're asking the same questions, which they're asking these personal questions from an individual who can kind of tap into the consciousness of our collective humanity and maybe even into that energetic stream of that individual. But again, there are too many variables to even try to make a prediction, because how confident is that person in themselves of getting that particular position? Are they ready for that? Maybe they're will be divinely guided to another position or another part of the world. You just don't know. So
right.
I don't even try to be that specific. When I do angel card readings, the cards are kind of a guide. And so say, for instance, I was going to do one for you.
Right.
The way I do it is I say, okay, Rob, close your eyes. Send me unconditional love of light to instill into these cards that I'm using. And then I will pull the cards in your best interest. And then I take 2 different decks. Because what's interesting energetically is when I pull these particular cards out of this one deck and then I do the spread the same on the other side. And many, many, many times, almost every time, if there's a very important message to come through, the same cards come up in the same places. So I know that as the energy's streaming through me, and what's important to me is you don't give me any information about who you are, where you've been living, if you have kids, nothing. I don't want to know anything about you. You just come on the line and say, and that's all I say to you is like, okay, send me this energy. Okay, I'm going to do this read, and at the very end, I'll sit down and we'll discuss it, and I'll give you clarity on anything that you have questions on. And I'm telling you what, I've been doing this for a while, and I mean, the people will speak for themselves. If you look on my Facebook page, there are actually psychics that have contacted me for these readings, and they've written these huge responses like, "Oh my gosh, this was like dead on," and this isn't me and my ego mind. This is spirit coming through me and just relaying a message. And I'm like, look, I don't know what this means to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this means to you. I'll give you some options of what, as it's coming through me as a filter, what I'm picking up. You decide what it means for you. And at the very end, they work it out themselves, because the message is for them. It's not for me and for me to stand and say, oh, wow, I got that right. It's about them.
Yeah, you see, that's what I love about you, Joe. You're humble. And to me, this is one of the greatest signs of a person who really cares about other people, and that shows in your medical practice and through the readings that you do. Joe, stand by. We've got to take our final break. We'll be back on the other side. www.aguidinglight.com. Dr. Joe and I return on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
These guys are the best!
Well, it's not my thing, but I'm sure youngsters everywhere will be delighted.
Thank you, Ronald Reagan, from the other side. Oh, geez, what does that tell you about our political life? You've got a guy who was in the movies, he hung out with a monkey, married a great lady, and became president of the United States. Well, there you go. Dr. Joe Marra is our special guest, www.aguidinglight.com, and light is spelled L-I-T-E. And, Joe, before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about angel readings that you do, and how would somebody contact you to get an angel reading?
Just through my website, aguidinglight.com, and all the information's there. Usually it's best just to do it by email.
Mm-hmm.
And for the month of February, I'm doing these free angel card readings, and I just got to preface that when people contact me, I don't even want their name. I don't want anything about them except for, how do they want me to do the reading on, phone or Skype, or how they want to do it. And whenever they contact me, usually I do it through phone or Skype. And that way I can get into the energy, and then I can sit down afterwards and we can discuss it. And if there's any need for clarity, we discuss it at the end. But I don't like to know anything about them because I don't want any influence in what I'm bringing through.
That's called a cold reading, right?
It's funny because I've heard a couple different things with that, and I do things my own way. Just I haven't been trained as an angel card reader, so
Right.
I'm just going to put it out there. But because of me being a Reiki master or an energy healer or a hypnotherapist, and I've learned to do these things, and I really don't feel that a person has to have particular training. In fact, I think it takes away from their own personal gifts in many cases. Maybe it's okay to start out to get you started, but you develop your own way of doing things that is right for you.
What was it like the first time you did an angel card reading and you actually saw the expression on the person's face, or you got their feedback, and how did it make you feel?
Well, I got to tell you, because we were talking about the ego and the spirit, at first you're like, am I making this stuff up, or is this actually coming through me? You constantly question yourself. Even today, I'm like, wow, that never came through before. I don't use those kind of words. Where'd that come from? But you just go with it. And at the very end, they'll specifically mention those words you use and say, and when you said blah, 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 that really hit home to me because my husband just told me that yesterday, or something like that. That really gives you confirmation and makes you aware that, okay, this is for them. This isn't about me. And I'm just going to put it out there and not change anything as it comes through. And I got to tell you another thing is I'm telling people that I'm offering these free angel card readings for the month of February, but I can count on one hand how many times I've had somebody pay for them over the years. And it's like this. Right now I'm in abundance because I work a 9-to-5 job. And so I don't really charge for it unless they want to. If they feel, I've had to balance that out because it's all about the balance of giving and receiving.
Right.
So what I ask, though, at the end of my readings is, you know what? Pay it forward. They're like, why are you doing this for free? I'm like, because I have abundance. I don't need the money right now. Maybe in the future I will, but for right now, this is something that apparently you that you wanted or you needed, and so I'm just going to give it for free. Now I want you to go out and pay it forward or do something kind for somebody.
Dr. Joe, we've got to say so long for tonight. You're going to be back with us in 2 weeks. And as always, a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for spending the time with us, and thank you for all the great things you do for the many people that you have the opportunity of touching each and every day. Take care, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Exonation, www.aguidinglight.com. I'll be back on the other side of the news as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell.